Alexa Earthkeeper here with the story of a yogi. Thank you for tuning in, and I have a special guest today, Michael Grise. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us. So I would love to just dive right in and have you tell us about you. Who is Michael, and how did he come to be today?
Um, that's a long story. So I guess it started in the military. Like I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and man, I experienced a lot of things in the Marine Corps. At the time, I was going to church a lot, and I was married, and I was also in the infantry, and so all those things kind of came together and shaped my life at that point. And throughout my time in the military, I'd seen a lot of different things. I was very active in the church, but I'd seen a lot of different things that like kind of detracted from my view of Christianity. Um, they also changed a lot of like how I saw the world. I went on 3 deployments and I learned a big lesson on each deployment. The first one and the second one were both to Iraq. And on my first deployment, I learned what people will do to each other to kind of reinforce the idea that their worldview is correct, seeing combat and seeing war. My second deployment, I saw what people will do to each other to advance through their own particular system. So there was a lot of like screwing people over, things like that. And then my third deployment, which was by and large the worst deployment, was to Thailand, Philippines, Australia, and Okinawa. And I saw a lot of crazy stuff there with like what people will allow themselves to do when they think that they're the hero. You know, like a lot of service members were engaging in illicit activity and stuff like that. And kind of sent me to a dark place. And by the time I got back from the last deployment, I still had 3 years left. I had what St. John of the Cross would call a dark night of the soul for a few years. Um, my faith was suffering at the time. My marriage was massively suffering at the time. And kind of my idea of myself was suffering massively at the time. Nothing made it better. Made it, nothing like mitigated it. It was just like every day was harder than the day before. Um, Then, at the same time, my mental health started depreciating rapidly. I started seeing a shrink on base, and like I said, it was just kind of this crazy period in my life where nothing made any sense anymore, and my body was also falling apart at the time. So I was trying to like keep it together by exercising, and that's when I first got into yoga, like just as a stretching mechanism to like stay loose, you know. Um, I had about 3 years. My unit deployed to Afghanistan, and like a bunch of guys died, and a bunch of guys got blown up and lost limbs and everything. And thankfully, I didn't go on that deployment because I would not be. I'd be like a shell of a human being after that, because that would have been another lesson learned the hard way about like leadership. A lot of my friends came back from that deployment and they were like, "We needed you there because you're like the voice of reason, you know, like you would stand up to people and say, no, we're not going to do this or whatever." And that was hard because people said that they needed me. And at the same time, like my ex-wife at the time was saying the same thing to me, like, I need you. And I was like, all these people need me. Like, I don't even know who I am. Like, what the hell's going on?
You needed you.
Yeah, I needed me exactly. And so then I got out because I had the chance to reenlist, and some things happened, and I was like, this is a clown show. I'm done. I'm just getting out. And about a year later, after getting out, my marriage failed, and I again was going through like just like a midlife crisis for like years, you know, like I didn't know who or what I was. And then I started doing what everybody does during a midlife crisis, and like, you know, drinking and partying and all the other stuff. And that was going nowhere. And I was just plagued by this thought, like, who am I? Like, what am I? What am I in? What is this world? What does this all mean? Um, it has to mean something. Like, if this suffering that we see on a day-to-day basis all across the world, if it is meaningless, then, what's the point? And somewhere in there, I had my, you know, United States media approved like veteran bout with suicide and came back from that. And I was like, I'm going to drink this bottle of alcohol or, you know, um, blow my head off. I'm sorry, but like that's the truth of the situation. And one of these things is going to happen tonight. And I ended up, getting too drunk to do anything, passed out, and woke up the next morning and sold my guns. And it's like, okay, I've got like at the time I had two kids. I was divorced, but like I had two kids, so like I had to figure out who I was so that I could, be a dad. And uh, I just kind of like hung on. And then time went by, and I met my wife, and you've met my wife, and she's great. She was very open to things and open to questioning, and she doesn't have any specific paradigm. I don't think that she holds on to, like tooth and claw. And so it was kind of great to just be able to explore ideas and things and not be, judged according to specific paradigm like Christianity or whatever. And so that was huge. That was instrumental in me kind of developing all the things that I am today. So was everything else, obviously, because we're all always, the culminating event of what we've been through. Um, and there were a couple of years where we just hung out and like we were best friends. And then we moved to Vegas and moved back, and that's an entirely different story. And I didn't have a job. I'm I'm a disabled veteran, so like I don't have to work, um, which was great. And she was like, "You should just garden, because like you can't do anything else. Like your body, my body's destroyed. It's like, you know, everything's falling apart all the time. So like I can't even walk a mile without like things hurting and everything. So anyway, she was like, "You should garden," and I was like, "Okay, I'll just be an old man and garden." And so I started doing that, and I was like, "This is awesome," because you get to see your results and like you work towards a goal and all this other stuff. And I've never done this in my life, like I've never been hit by motivation. Being in the Marine Corps infantry, like that's all motivation all the time, and I've never had ambition ever. I've never been like, I'm gonna do this. So I I started gardening, and I started reading about like philosophy. I was doing that out in Vegas, and listening to podcasts about, like existential philosophy, like the deep stuff, kind of all that stuff that I had experienced in the service and everything kind of culminated in this like drive to know like who and what I am and what we are and what we're on and what we're in and everything. And so I started reading about like different religions that weren't Christianity, because I still had a bad taste in my mouth, like most people do. So the first thing that almost every American does when they're like, I don't like Christianity anymore, they go to Wicca. And so I was like reading about that, and I was like, okay, I see this, it's cool, but it's not dense. It's very like not dense. So I need something more to sink my teeth into. So I started reading about anything I could get my hands on that wasn't Christianity. So then that went to like traditional witchcraft, like Gemma Gary and Nigel G. Pearson, which was cool because they have a lot of herb lore in like classic, I guess, classical witchcraft. So I was learning about herbs, and then for some reason I started reading about Buddhism at the same time I was reading about like Norse heathenry and just religion and like where we come from. That's always been a thing that I've been attracted to. And yeah, then at the time that was going on, I was taking classes at the Herbal Academy, which is an online herbalist program, and it's great if anybody's interested in herbalism. Their classes are pretty affordable, and they're very very uh, well put together and very dense. Um, Shameless promotion, I guess. But then I found the Maharishi International University through my Facebook feed, and they teach. They have the only accredited Ayurvedic program in the United States, and I was like, okay, but there was a catch, kind of. In order to go to the school, you have to learn transcendental meditation. And I've always had a problem meditating, like always. I've tried all the different types of meditation and like they never work. And then I learned TM and I was like, this works. Like this is the thing that works for me. Um, yeah, and I started school in August and it's just been a roller coaster since then. I do sell herbs and stuff like that at a couple of shows locally. And I teach classes occasionally at my house on herbalism. And most of the time I'm reading books about like philosophy and religion and yoga, and a lot of what's taught at the Maharishi school is has to do with all this, you know. I was kind of introduced to the idea, the real core idea of yoga, which is unity versus just like, you know, stretching. Like most people talk to them about yoga, they're going to think it's just stretching. And so I learned about this concept, and I think it's been about a year since I've been doing TM. And I learned about this idea of yoga and unity and the different levels of consciousness and all this stuff from the school. And then I like turned around and looked back on the path that has brought me here, you know, and I was like, okay, now I can look at things in a different light. And so I see like Christianity, and I see that in a different light now. And like, you know, I think it's like 1 Corinthians 12:12, where it's like there are many parts of the body, and the eyes can't say to the hands, I have no need of thee, and the head can't say to the feet, I have no need of thee. Like they're all the same parts of the body. And that was yoga, you know, like that's yoga. That's unity. And I just looked at the world with new eyes, and like all the suffering that I had been through has led me to this point where um, you know, I'm learning and accepting the world around me, and I see suffering, and you know, I want to approach that with compassion. And the world that we're in right now is just full of suffering and hate and discontent and all these negative things. And it's just like there's a way to begin to fix this, and it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be quick, but it will stay if we begin to practice these things as people, just individually. And that's, I guess, one of the key components to what I learned was, apparently this is not a quote from Buddha, but it was just a meme quote that I had seen on Facebook, and it was like, salvation does not lie outside of you, it lies within you. And I was like, that was a life-changing concept in and of itself. You know, we can try to bring these ideas to other people, but you can't save anybody except for yourself. You know, like I can bring all the data, the, you know, philosophies or whatever to any person that I meet. I can't do anything to save them. They have to save themselves. But that's when I learned, like recently, like I have to save myself. I'm responsible for myself, and in doing that, I can kind of like be an example for others to emulate and move on from there. So that's just, I guess, the quickest, fastest, dirtiest. How did I get here? I think I managed that in like what, 10 minutes? That's a personal record. But yeah, that's just kind of how I got here. Yeah, super simple, I guess.
Yeah. It's an amazing journey. Now, you have some classes coming up here at the Quantum Realm.
Yes, I do. March is going to be a very busy month for me. I've got 3 classes that I'm teaching here. One is one that I'm most proud of, I guess I would say, is teaching a class on kind of realizing who the higher self is. And prior to learning TM, Was like a mad scientist and like, in the basement with a whiteboard writing stuff down. And I developed my own model for consciousness, like where does all this stuff come from? Where's the real me at, like in this crazed fever state to like figure out who I am. And this was, within the last year. And so I kind of came up with my own model for consciousness, and I came up with my own method for meditation. And oddly enough, like it's fairly similar to the model that the Maharishi International University uses, and kind of the same as the model that they teach in TM. Kind of, it's different, but and it's kind of the same model that a lot of Eastern people teach, or Eastern paradigms, I guess I would say, teach. And I'm going to.
That's March 28th, recognizing a higher self.
Yes, yeah. And then I'm going to teach about what's called the doctrine of emanations and the Western paradigm of, I don't know the words for all this stuff, I guess occultism or esotericism or like Neoplatonic thought. And then its counterpart in the East called Samkhya. And they're very similar, they're like cousins. And that's kind of the without a religious paradigm where things come from and how they manifest from the source.
And that's the East meets West.
Yes, East meets West. And I don't remember the date for that.
I don't either.
It's in my phone, which is out there. But and then the other class is
allopathic versus holistic.
Allopathic versus holistic. And this is something I think that's extremely important for anybody to realize, is there's a difference between Western medicine, which is called allopathy.
Which is only, what, 100 years old?
I mean, it's got its roots in holism. There was just kind of a schism during the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, where everything kind of went to fact-based, science-based stuff. And I don't have anything specifically against the model of Western medicine. Western medicine can do things that holism cannot do. But I think a lot of people are throwing around two things, and this is what I want to talk about in the class. One is they're throwing around the word holistic, and a lot of the time they're not using it correctly. The other part is a lot of people that talk about holism, all they want to do is, trash talk Western medicine. And that's not fair. Like, Western medicine has done amazing things. I think that there's a synthesis there that could happen, which oddly enough is kind of what I'm learning about at school, between the two.
Marrying
the two up, and yeah, that's what that class is going to be on. And I can't remember when that one is either, but it's on your Facebook page.
Yeah, if you go to our Facebook page, the Quantum Realm Institute, and you click on the events, you'll find all the information. That's exciting. It really is. And I'm excited for the future, because I think that we're going to see more of that yoking of Western and Eastern practices. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's a beautiful thing to see that synthesis happen in anything, like why take a system that ostensibly works, it doesn't. Like, Western medicine has a lot of problems. There's a lot of issues there, but there's also a lot of good things there. Why would we just throw the whole thing away because we're opposed to
just like holistic practices? Yeah. Don't throw those out, because there's a lot of great things that work.
And it's interesting to see how these two things are coming together within certain paradigms. Like, what I'm being taught at school is kind of a yoking of these two, and it's like so much more could be accomplished. It's way more comprehensive than just holism or just allopathic medicine. I think the future of medicine and healthcare and just overall health in the world has this unique opportunity right now. If everybody that's involved acts correctly and does the right things for the right reasons, we can create like a new paradigm. We can create a new, basically like a new system of healthcare that is holistic and allopathic at the same time and create an immense amount of health on this planet.
Yes.
And like understanding of all the other systems that we have, like when you look at holistic versus allopathic and take those two paradigms as like a piece of glass and shine it on the way that we make our food and the way that we grow our food holistically, like these aren't good practices, and even allopathically there are a lot of things in our food that cause problems for us, so we could fix the food industry. Same thing with like lifestyles. A lot of people are addicted to social media right now, and that causes problems. And if we shine that light of allopathic medicine and holistic medicine on lifestyle, like anything, we could begin to unify, practice yoga for all these ideas. And I think more people would probably benefit from that, and we could ameliorate a lot of suffering in the world.
Yes, we could change the world.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
Well, maybe a little bit. A little bit's good. It's better than nothing. So
Yeah, which I think is happening. A lot of our systems are, a lot of them are the light is being shined upon.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're seeing things that don't work anymore.
Yes. I think we need to learn from the things that don't work and why they don't work and try to salvage what we can from them. And if there's nothing salvageable there, then we respectfully let them go into the past. And I think that that's a big part, this idea of like dignity and respect for letting go of standards and traditions and stuff. Like, they got us here. They may not have been pretty, they may not have been nice, but like they got us to this point. And this point is a paradigm shift, and that's good. But we have to like let the things in the past go that don't work go with dignity and respect.
I love that.
Yeah, because people died. People died for those things. People were castigated and ostracized for all those things. And if we think of humanity as a holistic group of people, like we as a species have caused pain and suffering, and we need to. It doesn't matter what intersectional path you're on, like everybody's got to realize that like that we're all human and we all deserve dignity and respect despite our differences, despite our beliefs, and even the worst of us. Like I was telling you about my mom, right before I came in, and this is a huge thing for me. At some point I realized that so for everybody watching, like my mom and I don't get along. My parents and I don't get along. But I realized at some point that like she was doing what she knew how to do.
At her level of consciousness.
At her level of consciousness, and everything that she experienced caused her to be a certain way. And while it is, yes, it's partly her fault for choosing to act the way that she did, that's the only way that she knew how to act.
And so we can find forgiveness and compassion.
And that was a huge thing. And I think right now in the modern world, with all the social and political issues, like that compassion and that understanding and wisdom could solve so many problems. To just, like, I understand why you did this. This is the way that you were raised. Instead of screaming at somebody, like I've done that with my parents, like screamed at them. I've, all this hate and vitriol, like poison coming out of me.
Because that does bad.
That does bad things for you.
For your body, yeah.
Absolutely. But, and it's a process to get there. It's not something that's like, that you just choose to, like accept. Like you have to process your way through the hate and the vitriol and the poison in your system that you feel for another person, another group of people, an ideology, whatever. You have to process through that. And I love this from the Bible. Like, don't sin in your anger. Like, you're gonna get angry at somebody that you have perceived to wrong you. But like, if you act out in that anger against those people, like that's what Christians would call a sin. In the Eastern paradigm, you would be accruing negative karma. You're putting bad things out into the world. And that's like, it's the same thing. It's the same doctrine. It's just got different words and different icons and idols and stuff, but it's the same thing. And yeah, I think when I realized that, it's not my mom's fault, it's not my dad's fault, it's not, the government's fault for the wars, like it is partially, but it's also everybody else's fault. Like everybody's guilty and everybody deserves compassion and dignity. And like those two ideas, when I figured that out about my mom, those two ideas just kind of washed over me. And I was like, okay, so now I've just like turned my entire worldview on its head again. And I just began to look at the world a lot differently after that. So it was a life changing, like, progression of logic. Like I don't know. It was really weird to get to the point where after everything that I felt about like my parents or anybody, like the the 8 years that I was in the service, like there's a lot of bad things that happen there, and there's a lot of like problems that I've had with other people, and to like learn that after processing things with my parents, and then again like turning around and looking at the path that brought me here, like understanding occurred, and I was like, oh, like it's not like we're all guilty here. Like everybody's guilty. It doesn't matter what you do. Like you're guilty. Um, I don't know. That was transformative. Like we've all been guilty of something, and we've all added to the negativity of the world, and we will continue to do so. Like everybody will, even if you try to help somebody, you can cause problems for somebody else or
But the
whatever.
more mindful we're actively trying to be, the less suffering we cause, the more healing we cause.
Yeah, I think yes.
And a lot of that has to do with consciousness.
Yeah, and understanding and being judicious and how you apply yourself to the world, um, becoming more knowledgeable about how things work, um, kind of gives you a lot more judiciousness in the way that you act. Like supporting a certain bill that's going through Congress or whatever. You could say like, yeah, this is going to cause, great things for us here in America, and everybody in America could look at, Bill X and be like, yeah, this is great for us, and it passes. But in reality, it causes problems for people in other nations. Causes problems in different sectors of the economy or whatever. Like we just don't know. And so we have to try to know as much as possible, and we have to act as judiciously as possible. And we have to, I think, stop acting from the position of the ego,
Mm-hmm. Think about the highest good for all.
Yeah. Or even, so there's this story, and this, you're saying like, the last question would be what is your advice for
Yeah,
this,
let's
right?
get to it.
So
What's your advice for humanity?
there was another story that I think I heard of the story, I think through Alan Watts.
Oh, I love Alan.
Yes, Alan Watts he needs to be canonized as a saint in some religion. I don't care what it is.
Altruism.
Yeah, but the story is, it's who's to say what's good or what's bad, and it's this old Taoist story, and it basically goes something like this: there's a farmer and his son, and they have a neighbor, and the farmer and the son are outside with their horses, plowing the field, and the horse runs off into the woods, and after they finish what they can, they come home, and the neighbor's like, "Hey, I saw your horse ran off. Like that sucks. That's bad." And the farmer's like, "Yeah, who's to say what's good or what's bad?" And the neighbor's like, "Okay, horse just ran off." And the next day, the farmer and his son, they go out and they're plowing the field, and their horse comes back with 3 other horses. And so they take him over to the pen, and after the day is done, and the neighbor walks by again because he's super nosy, and he's like, "Hey, I saw your horse came back, and you have 3 more horses. Like that's good. That's amazing." And then the day after that, um, the father and the son, they're out trying to break one of the new horses in, and the son falls off the horse and breaks his leg, so he can't help on the farm anymore. And the nosy neighbor's like, hey, I saw you carrying your son in. And did he break his leg or something? Like, that's horrible. That's bad. And then the next day, the army comes through and they're conscripting everybody in the town that's able to walk. And the neighbor's like, hey, your son didn't get taken. That's good. And it just keeps, like, you could tell the story as long as the day is. And the general gist of it is like, things that we think are good right now may not be good in the future. And things that we think are bad right now may end up being good in the future. Who's to say what's good or what's bad? Who are we to impose our morality onto the world? And this is something that I was working on with my own model of consciousness, and I figured out the word paradigm at school because it was kind of like the key component that I was looking for. But my advice to people would be like, everybody has a paradigm. You have a belief system, you have some sort of thing with which you use to make sense of the world. And according to that paradigm, things may or may not be good, or they may be bad, or whatever. But don't project that outside of yourself onto the world, because your paradigm may change. At this point in time, it may be a good thing, and 3 weeks from now, it might be a bad thing. So this is living in the moment. This is mindfulness. This is living in the present. This isn't looking into the past. This isn't looking into the future. And there's a little bit of nihilism that might come along with that. So be aware of it. But that would be my advice to people is, live in the present and don't project your own belief structures onto the world. Because when you do that, you are ostensibly forcing other people to abide by your own worldview. And who are you to say what's good and what's bad? Right. Who are any of us to say what's good or what's bad? That's it. Start from there, and I think that's the thing that was another kind of moment in my life where it was like, I read that story and I was like, whoa, yeah. So I guess that would be my advice.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here on the show.
Yeah. It's dry in here. It's not.
Yeah, it's raining.
It's raining outside pretty badly. So.
And thank you for being a part of the quantum realm, teaching these classes and sharing your knowledge with people.
Thank you for having me. This has been great so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing people come out for classes, and further along the line when I get done with school, maybe I can do consulting here, or I don't know where the future's taking me for.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael is a wealth of knowledge, and we can talk for forever. I think.
That's a problem. I have a problem. Like, my friends come over and sit in the kitchen and drink decaf, and we solve all the world's problems in like 4 hours.
Michael for president?
No, no way, never. Nope. I'm never running for office. That's terrible.
You have really great ideas, though, and trains of thought.
Well, thank you. They were, hard-learned lessons. So that would be my second piece of advice. There are two types of wisdom, right? There's the stuff that you can learn from other people. That's the easy way. You just got to listen and accept that maybe they know what they're talking about. Then you can live and suffer through life and go through hardships and everything else and learn things the hard way. I've done that. I've got to the point now where I'm trying to learn from other people, because I've suffered enough. And it's like, okay, maybe, so-and-so's got ideas that are good. And I can not have to suffer and just listen to the wiser people of the world. So everything that I have said has been said elsewhere. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, I'm not that smart. I'm not that creative. Like, I'm just putting together stuff that's already out there and making sense of it for me, I guess. Yeah.
It reminds me of my new mantra. It's like, we've learned wisdom through pain. Now it's time to learn wisdom through love.
Exactly. That's exactly what that is. And so, love, right? Can we keep going?
Yeah.
Are you okay with keeping going?
Yeah, I think we're good.
So love, right? Like, I know a lot of people want to throw the Bible out. And that's fine. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But I think there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible. And in Corinthians, Paul said, what is love? Love is patient, it's kind, it doesn't boast, it's long suffering, it doesn't keep track of wrongdoings, and there's a bunch of other stuff. All those are a choice.
Mhm.
So, according to Paul in the Bible, like love is a choice that we make every day. And when we can learn through suffering and pain, and we can gain wisdom through our own iniquities, and we can suffer through life, or we can be patient and kind and keep no record of wrongdoings and all of that stuff that Paul says that love is. And every single one of those is a choice. And so everyday love is a choice that we make. And love is also kind of a form of wisdom, like being patient with people, being kind with people, keeping no records of wrongdoing with people. I think that that's very wise to do because it allows people the chance to develop themselves without fear of being judged or made fun of.
Right.
If that makes
Or
sense.
not loved, not accepted.
Or yeah, accepted. Yeah, that's a big one too. Like keeping record of wrongdoings. And I'm not a Christian anymore. I just remember this stuff from when I used to read my Bible every day, and it was like, okay, there's a lot more here than I remember.
Yeah.
Especially from having like all of these changes in myself. Like I went out and bought another Bible. Like I burned my old one. I was like, oh, I hate you, like that kind of a thing. And then I was like, okay, there's some good stuff here. Like there's some really good ideas here, and it was a humbling experience. Like
you said, your paradigm can
yeah,
shift.
yeah. Be humble too. Let the world humble you. Like there's a lot of things that you can learn being humbled. That's I guess the third piece of advice. I don't know. I just
see you're full of all this good stuff.
Talk, dude. There's actually a script over there I wrote up, a teleprompter, so I'm reading off of it. But yeah, I don't know. There's just man, it's a crazy, crazy world, and we're crazy, crazy people, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. Just be present for it, and try not to cause suffering for other people. I guess is the thing, and you're going to, because you can't control how other people think or feel, or you might violate their paradigm and cause a problem, and things just are. Like things just are. Sometimes they're suffering, sometimes they're good. That doesn't mean that it's going to continue to be good. I don't know. You have to turn it off or I'll keep talking. I have no closing game.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
this
you,
was
thank
great.
you, thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
Make sure you come check out Michael's classes and come see him, pick his brain. He's got all sorts of things.
I'm just a guy.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much and have a great day.
Yep. Thank you.